Welcome to Complete Edition, the podcast between a PlayStation Trophy Hunter and an Xbox Achievement Hunter. This is episode 34. I'm your host, Compulsive Nerd, and I'm joined by AJ. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing well. Things are going okay. I've been playing quite a few games, a ton of backlog games, and a lot of jumping around different games, which is I think relevant to our topic later in the show as well. So that sort of just lined up, which is quite nice. But yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm really good, dude. Things are just turning around for me. It does suck that the fall semester is starting because now I have to really buckle down and study, which cuts down game time. But I just helped a friend move 17 hours away from the city that we live in, and I moved him out to Washington, D.C., and it's just kind of it was a 17-hour road trip, and then I spent 2 days in D.C., and it was pretty fun. I only slept 12 hours the whole time, but that kind of cut down gaming time. I really didn't have a lot of time to game, but that was actually a really fun trip, and I thought it would be bittersweet, but it didn't feel like a goodbye. I think technology has just completely surpassed that feeling. It's dude, I'm going to talk to you every day, dude. It barely changes anything. We'd hang out once every 3 weeks, and it's if you fly back to Kansas City once every 3 months, it won't feel as horrible or whatever. So it didn't really feel like a goodbye whenever I said goodbye. So that was nice, actually. So, but everything else is good. We did miss a week last week for the listeners who were where have they been? Where have they been? It's we just school and so much stuff is popping up. It's it's really hard, but we're going to keep on trucking. But, yeah, dude. I mean, things are pretty awesome. I've been gaming too, getting on the backlog stuff, but that's about to end, AJ. It feels like that. I looked at forward and I'm oh, geez, it's coming quickly. Shadows of Rose will be out, and then it's right around October probably. That's when a lot of these games start releasing again, and then we get just hit November, December, and then 2023 is going to be around and starting, and it's once that starts, all the games that got delayed are going to start coming out. So I feel
or face more delays. That's the alternative.
That's true. That is very true. But it kind of feels that way. And I kind of was looking at my, I reprioritize my games, and I'm man, I want to play Tunic, and I want to play some of these backlog games that I just haven't touched yet. And the Game Awards are coming around too. So I got to crunch on the games that came out in 2022. So it does feel that backlog period's coming to an end, but I loved it, dude. I did. I loved that downtime and not having to play new things, but also playing things that were new to me, but just not this year.
Yeah, for me, I think I sort of agree. I think it's going to be a bit quieter. I mean, I'm looking forward to a couple of things in October, and then I'm not sure, one game in November, I think, and then a couple in December. So yeah, I guess that is kind of stacked. For me, I guess October, there's a day where Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 comes out, and on the same day, the Resident Evil 8 DLC comes out. So that'll be the first time in ages where there's one day where two, at least big to me, those are big releases for me personally. I know, Resident Evil DLC isn't necessarily that big in terms of the wider industry, but yeah, that day is going to be quite fun. Then in November, there's Pentiment, which I'm looking forward to. The Josh Sawyer game from Obsidian. And then December is, I think, High on Life and the Callisto Protocol. I want to play both of those.
Me too.
It's hard keeping track, though. I'm talking about it, and I'm was that the old release date, or is that, have I missed, a news thing where, it's been delayed even further? Because you're just reminded of all the delays that happen all the time. And yeah, the other game I forgot was, I think, the sequel to the first Plague Tale game is in October as well. So
that's what I was about to say. I was hey, dude, we actually might have a spoiler cast if we both play it at the same time, because I plan to play that at launch because I love the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I should do. I've got no reason not to. It's a Game Pass Day One
game. Yeah.
Game, so I don't even it'll just be there. So I may as well.
Yeah, so
I think I can
really
preload it as well. So that'll be cool.
Whoa, I didn't know Game Pass does preload. That's kind of sick.
yeah, you can pre-install stuff on there, which is nice. They have on the coming soon thing for Game Pass, it encourages you to preload, and what it does is you can do it for games way in advance, even if they've not got an announced date sometimes. But what it'll do is it'll download I don't know how it works on PlayStation, but first on Xbox it'll download like a 200 megabyte file, and I think that's like a placeholder that then gets like filled up with like the game at some point later, and will just essentially the game itself will be like an update to that like small placeholder file. And so it'll like, once you've pre-installed like the tiny file at some point, once the game's like, I guess, gone gold, and been like uploaded onto, the Xbox database or what, game database, whatever you call it, or the storefront, it will update it, and then it will be like ready for when it comes out, which is quite cool. The only problem with it is sometimes it only gets like added to that, like the final code gets put on really, really close to release date, which I feel like is more common now than ever in terms of games like really rushing to hit their date, like just being like exactly on the date or really close to the date when it's ready. But typically because of review embargoes and stuff, there's at least like a few days where you get time to install the whole thing. So yeah, it's nice that it has that feature. I've not set anything to pre-install, but I should do it soon, because you're right, like it's really coming up on like faster pace for new releases at this point.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're just kind of enjoying your backlog, and you're not really looking to the future, and then you turn your head and it's like, holy crap, it's there. It's like it's imminent. And it like on my priority list, so I make these lists on Backlogged, and I put like priority games that I want to play, and I'm trying to like stack the games from 2022 that I want to play with the games that are releasing, and it looks like it's like Shredder's Revenge, Nobody Saves the World, the Somnium Files, Tunic, Tale Requiem, Valkyrie Elysium, God of War Ragnarok, Callisto Protocol, and it's like, dude, it's just like game after game after game after game, and I'm really excited to get into them, but it feels like it's coming fast, dude. It's crazy, but I'm excited. But I am gonna squeeze that my most anticipated game of the next couple months. It's not even a full game. It is the Resident Evil Village DLC. Like, I am the most pumped for that. Like, you and I discussed the end of like all of Village, and it's just like we get answers coming. Like we get answers coming with this expansion. I'm so excited for that. So very, very pumped about that expansion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I'm more excited for that than Modern Warfare 2, honestly. But I am excited for both.
And then Callisto Protocol is probably my second or third hyped. God of War's up there, man. God of War's like my second favorite game of all time. So really excited for that game. But
yeah, Callisto Protocol is nice because it is quite derivative of Dead Space, as you'd expect from the studio head's heritage. But it's derivative, but it feels like it's in a good way because it's been so long since we've had a Dead Space game. And then also, you've got the potential of the fact that it's a new IP means they can go in like so many different directions with it that you kind of, I feel like I'm on like mostly a blackout on that game now. They showed gameplay recently, again, I believe, like a pretty big gameplay demo. And I saw some of it, but I was kind of like trying to avoid it as well and not really paying close attention, went on different tabs while that was being shown because I'm already sold on it, and I like the novelty or the potential for there to be novelty with a new IP. But from the gameplay that I've seen, it does seem so similar to Dead Space that there is like that. I don't know if it's a worry necessarily, but for this game to be like, I don't know, an 8 out of 10, it could just be like Dead Space, like basically just Dead Space again, right? And that would be good enough for me to be really happy with it. But for it to be like a 9 or a 10, like I'd want it to do that, but then like push it a bit further in ways that I don't expect. I want it to surprise me, or the story to intrigue me, or I don't know, crazy twists with characters and the plot and that kind of thing. I'd want or some gameplay mechanic that's really innovative or something a bit extra to push it over the top. And I'm not sure if it has that, but I don't want that kind of thing spoiled for me either. So I want to kind of go in fresh to see how it delivers on that.
After the first trailer, I think I watched some gameplay on it, and it was really funny. I was like, man, I'm kind of hoping that they throw in a See All Deaths trophy and achievement, and they ended up announcing that they are doing that, and a lot of people have complained about it, being like, what if there's RNG ones where like you can't control it? It's like, yeah, that does suck. I hope that they do it right. But I still like this game. A lot of things that they've shown with it is like brutal deaths. And I'm like, I just want to see all these crazy animated deaths that they're going to do. It's kind of exciting and fun because it's just it's a graphic game, dude. Like, whoa, it is so graphic, but I'm really looking forward to that game. And you know what's fun? It's like, it's right before Christmas. It's like that December 2nd, I think. And it's like, what a great time for horror stuff. It's just a great time for horror stuff. But yeah, you want to talk about some of the games that you've been playing?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I want to start off talking about I said before that I've played like a bunch of backlog stuff and also jumped around between games. I'm not normally someone who jumps around between games too much. I do a bit, especially in terms of like completions. Like a lot of the time, I think I'd go insane if I just like fully committed to one game, especially if I'm not feeling it and I know it's like a 50-hour commitment or something. Like I'll shelve that after like 10 hours and perhaps come back to it later if I'm having a problem. But for the most part, I feel like I stick with games at least through to doing like a lot of it, like finishing the base game, for example, even if not the completion, but a lot of the time the completion. However, I sort of broke that trend these past few weeks because True Achievements has. So I don't know if PSN profiles or the associated like trophy community websites. I assume True Trophies will, but I know True Trophies isn't really like that popular compared to like I feel like PSN profiles is more sort of the PlayStation site from what I've heard and what I see usually online. But anyway, so True Achievements has a community challenge, and they have a lot of these. They have a few every couple of months, typically. Along with they have challenges that are like specific tracker type challenges as well. Like I've got these mini challenges that are basically get achievements in backlog games, get achievements in co-op games, get achievements in open world games, that kind of thing. And you get like a badge for your profile if you do it, and you have a time limit for it. So you have like a month, and you have to get achievements in this like specific category of games, and it will show you a list of like all the games that you have and all the achievements that are eligible, and then you can get like a gold, silver, or bronze medal to put on your profile. So I've been doing some of those, but then also they had a like bigger community challenge called the A to Z challenge, which I did. So the way it works is you need to get an achievement beginning with the letter A, then an achievement beginning with the letter B, then one beginning with the letter C, and so on all the way to Z. And you have to get it in like that specific order. Like you can't just do it in any order and get like one of every letter of the alphabet. You have to go like A, then B, then C, then D, then E, and so on. And again, like the website's really great in terms of how it will show you. It'll be like, okay, so here's the games that you've started, and like here's like an alphabetized list of the achievements for like the specific and lists for the specific letter you're looking for. So I did that because I thought, first of all, it's like a cool gimmick thing. I don't do many of these challenges. And obviously, some letters are like way more difficult than others. As you can imagine, like achievements beginning with like the letter X are quite rare. So is Z. And a few others are quite tricky. And then there's tons of achievements. But also, it was good because I really liked how the list of eligible achievements would be from games I've already started, because it's a good way to like raise that completion percentage and and go back to like sort of be encouraged and have like more of a reason to go back to something. And if you're struggling to find what to play, it was really nice as like a taster session almost of lots of these different games that I'd started before, because it's like you play it to get the letter achievement, and then you go to a different game to get like another letter achievement, typically, unless you get a game where you can get like two in a row. But usually that wasn't the case. You're sort of jumping around games. And that was really fun. You could skip a couple of letters and still get like the completion. I think you could skip 2 letters, but I did all of them. I'd say so. I've got a lot of games to talk about in that sense, but a lot of them I only played really briefly, so I'm not going to talk about all of them just because I don't have any particular insight on them. But I'd say as well, with this challenge, what really helped was 2 games, Halo the Master Chief Collection and Minecraft. because
Wow.
both of those games have a very high amount of achievements. Halo MCC has 700 achievements, which, for like perspective for everyone, the average achievement list or trophy list is usually about 50, but sometimes 30, sometimes 40. The average like base game, typically on PlayStation and Xbox, it'll have like 50 achievements. So for Halo MCC to have 700 is ridiculous. And listeners will know I've played a lot of Halo. I've played it through every Halo game. You know, I've beaten all of them on Legendary. I've done a lot of Halo in my time. I have, I think, 430 out of 700, and I've put hundreds of hours into Halo MCC. So even for me, who's already played a lot of it, I still have like 300 achievements left. Which, again, if you compare to the average game, which has 50, even though I've got over half the achievements, that game still has so many achievements to get. And as you can imagine, that game, I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% certain, but that game probably has every letter of the alphabet in it in terms of achievements. Like starting with, there might not. No, I think there is one for every letter, because I remember that the letter where I had the lowest amount of achievements was X. I think I only had about 10 to choose from to get, but the one I got was in Halo 3 ODST, which is called Xenophobia, and it's to beat a level without picking up any Covenant weapons. So don't use any of the alien guns, basically. And that's an easy achievement to get. But yeah, that was X. But basically, this challenge was really helped by Halo, because it's just, there's so many achievements in so many games that, and they're always as well, like, that game's both an achievement hunter's dream and also their nightmare, because on the one hand, there's a lot of really cool achievements. Like, there's a lot, they have a lot of effort in them as well. That's what's great about it. There's not really, the achievements aren't lazily designed. They're not like, oh, kill 10 enemies, kill whatever. I mean, there's a couple that are like that to some extent, but it's not like the list is padded with all of those. There might be like one milestone achievement like that in each game, for example, but that would be it. A lot of them are to look at Easter eggs. There's tons of stuff in like the multiplayer maps, in the Forge modes, in the competitive multiplayer, in the campaigns, through time trials. Like, there's time challenges for each level, there's score challenges for each level, there's tons of stuff. There's like unique challenges, like the Vidmaster stuff, where it's like beat, the final level on 4-player co-op with everyone in a ghost, and with these skulls on and that kind of thing. So there's so much to do, and the achievements are mostly great. Some are a nightmare, so it's good in that sense. But the bad thing is that because there's so many achievements, there's a lot of gamer score. I think there's maybe 5,000, 5 to 7,000, I think. But for the amount of achievements, the average achievement is only worth like 5 or 10 points. So it's like fun, but it's also frustrating, because it's going to take you so long to get the completion, and every achievement you get is typically really low value. Like, even completing every campaign on Lasso, the achievement you get for it's not like 200 points or something. It's I don't know how much it is exactly, but it's like 25 to 50 or something. So it doesn't feel proportionate to the level of challenge, the amount of gamer score you get. But it really helped with this A to Z challenge. I think probably about half the letters were from Halo, and Minecraft was good as well, because there's a Minecraft achievement world, which was helpful. But along those lines, in terms of other specific games, I got all the achievements in this game called Submerged. I don't know if you've heard of this game. It's
I haven't heard of this game.
yeah, it's like a really casual exploration game with very easy achievements. By casual exploration game, I guess I mean kind of like Abzu, and there's another. I mean,
Oh,
it's
okay.
not like, I wouldn't say like Journey, because I feel like Journey has more narrative implications than this game necessarily does.
Is it like educational? Because I felt like Abzu was educational. You could like sit down on these things and you could like look at all these fish and
No,
like
not really. Kind of. I mean, Yeah, no, not really. What you said about fish reminded me because there's fish that are a collectible, and so the way what Submerged is it's like it's this like destroyed city that you're in, and you have like a boat that you go around, and the city's obviously it's not like fully submerged in water, so you're not underwater at any point of the game. You're like on top of the water in like this dilapidated, abandoned city on a boat, and there's like giant whales and like stuff, and you can't really die from anything. Like you just like go find them and look at them, and there's dolphins and stuff, and it's cool.
Do you know what's really cool? And this is just a thought I'm having as you're describing this game. With movies and stuff, when you try to describe a movie to someone, I think it's pretty easy because I mean it's all similar. But with video games, they all have such a unique like art style and like way that they're designed that when you try to explain it to someone who hasn't seen it, it's like kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
Do
So
you
you're
know what I
saying I'm doing
mean?
a bad job
No,
explaining
no,
this
not at
game? That's what you're
all.
saying.
Not
Okay.
no, dude, you're doing a great job. I'm like picturing this in my mind, but if I go look at it, I'm curious how it'll look differently. You know, like
Yeah. So the
it's
main
cool.
gameplay is you sort of go around and you explore, and on your boat you collect like stuff that makes your boat go faster. You can use more turbo, that kind of thing, and you look for sea creatures as well. And then you have these buildings, and you have to climb to the top of them to get these supply drops. And the supply drops are for medicine for. I think he's your brother. I'm not sure. The thing is I'd started this game years ago because again, the context is me, coming back into these games for achievements. I'd started this game maybe in 2015. So, and I had like a save that was partly full. And because it's a collectathon where you don't like unlock any abilities and it's not really a very complicated game, I didn't start the whole game over again. I just carried on. So, the negative of that is the game's very minimalist in terms of its story and its narrative. So, me joining at that point, I've kind of got like no idea what the fuck was going on, to be honest, in terms of the story. But you've got like this girl and this boy, and you play as the girl, and the boy is injured, is sick, and so you get these supply drops on top of these buildings, and then that like serves as like medicine to help him. And there's also these like weird alien creatures that are stalking you as well. But the gameplay is essentially you drive around on the boat, you find a place to on these skyscrapers to climb up, and then you do like the Uncharted Tomb Raider style of climbing. You grab a ledge and you shimmy across that type of thing. There's not really much like platforming. You're platforming, but hopefully people get what I mean. You're
Yeah.
platforming, but you're on rails basically. Like you're not.
Oh yeah.
And there's an even more on rails than Uncharted because I think Uncharted is kind of guilty of being kind of it's kind of like a theme park ride in
It
terms
really
of
is.
how the
That
game plays, at least until Uncharted 4.
yeah. There's like grab like hand grab locations or like the ledge sticks out and it's just like you have that path. You know,
Yeah, it's
it's
more
not really platforming. It's just moving across that. You know.
it's more like cinematic than a sort of gameplay
Yeah.
challenge typically. But
That's
this game's
perfect.
like even I'd say on sort of like the scale of like I'd say Uncharted, especially like the early Uncharted's, that's probably kind of on railsy, like not that challenging. And then Tomb Raider's probably a bit more challenging, like a little bit. This game's like way easier than both of them. Like this one's way like there's no like jump into a bar in the end and in the air and you swing on the bar, and there's none of that type of complexity.
Right.
It's basically just
Right.
like fully like you're just like climbing a climbing wall essentially, and that's it. And the camera zooms out and you get like these cool camera angles and these nice vistas to look over and some of the sea creatures, and it looks pretty. It's more visual than anything else. It's held back by the fact that it's an early Xbox One game and an indie game, in that it feels like a game where it is a bit stylized, but it feels like a game that would benefit from like having more photorealism, having more I don't know, having more budget, a bigger team, that kind of thing. It's not overly simplistic where in other words, when you look at it, you can see like, oh, that wall texture isn't great, or these character animations aren't brilliant, and I'm looking at them quite closely, and it's sort of trying to go for pseudo realistic. So you can't compare it to like an Uncharted, really, to be fair, in terms of like scope and that kind of thing. But because the gameplay is so reminiscent, and also the gameplay is so uninvolving in that it kind of plays itself, you're sort of meant to look at it, if that makes sense. Like you're meant to be admiring the beauty of it. And so then at that point you kind of end up, I guess, criticizing it because there's no gameplay to distract you from, the lack of fidelity, I suppose. But it was an interesting game. It wasn't that bad. It also wasn't, we talk about our disdain for easy achievement games. This game is easy, but it's a genuine game, right? Like, I think from how I've described it, I've made that clear that it is a game. People have put effort into it.
It has mechanics that aren't hold X.
Yeah, it takes 6 to 8 hours to get all the achievements. So I think it's like a valid title. I think it is from that early Xbox One era where it was like, this is an easy achievement game and it's 6 hours long, and now it's like 10 minutes long for an easy achievement game. So it's kind of like the transition into early easy achievement games. But yeah, it was okay. I mean, it's probably like a 4 out of 10, honestly, in terms of, I don't know, enjoyment. But it's hard to be like annoyed at it or like disappointed by it. It's like fine as a podcast game. There's some annoying stuff. I'd say the most annoying thing, other than like the simplicity and the fidelity of it, they'll sometimes, when you collect a supply drop at the top of a building, it immediately teleports you down to the bottom into a cutscene. And sometimes there'll be a collectible just past the supply drop. So if you get the supply drop before the collectible, you have to climb the whole building over again, which can sometimes take like 5 minutes, which is just like, it's not that big of a complaint. Although given the game is as short as it is, and essentially to get to the credits of the game, all you do is pick up these supply drops, like that's all you're doing. It seems like a kind of annoying thing that they've done. I think it's an intentional decision, but it's still stupid. Where it's like you've got like the supply drop in front of you, and then you've got like this hidden thing and the collectibles right there, and you just get annoyed that you missed it. So that's probably the only other major complaint I have about it. But the big problem is that it's just not that engaging, I guess, both in terms of gameplay, in terms of characters. But it's from a small team. You can't really be mad at it. It works. It's a relaxing time. It's pretty good. So also, I played Minecraft, as I mentioned. This was way more difficult than I thought it would be, because I didn't realize that it's very difficult to get into a custom world or custom server in Minecraft on Xbox, which is odd to me because I used to play Minecraft on PC and I remember it being quite easy. So there's tons of methods to like get this achievement world working, which is you can download the map locally, which I think is the hardest method because you had this app on Xbox that used to convert like the file or something, but Microsoft got rid of the app, so you can't get it anymore. But you can download it on your PC and put it onto like a external storage, and then transfer that external storage to there's like a whole. I didn't mess with that because also I was like, this seems like a good way to just like get my account banned, basically, given how involved this is. The other way you can do it is you can change like your DNS stuff, and then when you go into like a server, it should let you then choose which server you go into, because the way it works at the moment on Minecraft is when you go to custom servers, you have like a list of like 6 or 7 servers to choose from, but you can't like search for like one beyond that list. Like you can't go, no, I don't want to join any of these, I want to join like a different one. But changing the DNS is supposed to make it so, to this like specific thing, is supposed to make it so when you click on one of those options, it instead takes you to a different screen where you can then choose which server to go in. That didn't work for me, and if anything, it made things worse because I couldn't even get into those other servers that I didn't want to go into. It just wouldn't let me get into any servers at that point. So the easiest way was through like this Minecraft Realms thing, which lets people host a world, and you can search for that in a much easier way. However, only 10 people can be on the world at one time for some reason. So that was annoying as well, and it didn't work. the first few times for some reason. Because it was like, oh, your version of Minecraft's incompatible with their version of the world. And yeah, so it was way harder than I thought it would be. And I really thought it would be easy. A, because Minecraft has been around for so long. B, because Mojang have been working on Minecraft for so long. C, because Minecraft on Xbox, Mojang is owned by Xbox, so you'd think it would be easy to do this stuff on Xbox, given it's, it should, in theory, along with PC, be the lead platform for the game. Like if it was difficult on Nintendo Switch, I'd be like, okay, they've not prioritized the Nintendo Switch for this game, which would make sense. But on Xbox, it's a nightmare. Then there's also the fact that Minecraft is so immensely popular, you'd think things like this would work. And then there's also that Minecraft is very popular among children who, they're not going to want to go into like DNS settings and like all of these like complicated steps to get a thing to work, right? Like if you're like a 5-year-old, you're not going to want to deal with that. You're going to just want to click button and get in game. So, it's stupid that it's that complicated for all of those reasons and probably more. But I managed to get some achievements out of it, so that was good. But I feel like with the amount of time it took, it might have been better to just like make my own world and get them that way.
I know that struggle with Minecraft because on PlayStation, I did platinum it. But dude, I don't even think I have 50% of the trophies. Like, there's a lot. There's both like on Xbox and on PlayStation. There's just a lot of achievements for that game because
they keep updating it and adding stuff to it. It's like we talked last time about how Xbox seem to do this with all their games now, or a lot of their games, where it's like they'll release it and then they'll do update, and it's cool because it's all like free content, but then adds achievements and trophies, and they just keep doing it. So it sort of keeps you on the same game for longer.
Right.
Which I think is nice generally, but it can be that like kind of like with MCC where it's like it's a good thing, it's like a blessing and a curse for achievement hunters, because it's like there comes a point where you just want to be done with the game, right? You just like, okay, I can uninstall it, I can move on, I can do so, I had a great time with it, but that's it, right? I don't want my whole life to be playing, Gears 5 or whatever. Like I can just play through the campaign, play maybe 20 hours of multiplayer, and then I want to be done at that point. So it can be a bit annoying. I also played Rainbow Six Extraction. So I'd only played a bit of this when it came out, and I've only played about 30 more minutes, but I had a really good time with it. And I'm surprised because this game is kind of a meme. It's kind of a joke. It was announced and it was one of those like what the fuck type Ubisoft announcements, and it seemed to come out and it was like the reviews were like, this is really mediocre, and then people were like, oh, it's like a Rainbow Six Siege cash grab thing, like it should just be an extra mode for Rainbow Six Siege, but instead they're charging for it, and it uses the same characters from Siege, it uses similar or the same maps, but it's just PvE. So the game had a lot of negativity about it, and it was another one of those. It wasn't quite as bad as like X Defiant or something like that, but it was kind of close. I feel like it was a bad Ubisoft announcement and badly marketed product, but I can't believe how much fun it was, and I really want to play more of it. Perhaps in co-op, but I don't know. The one thing that always holds me back, and this is true with Siege and Extraction, is the movement's quite sluggish, which is intentional. It's not like they designed it badly. It's because they want you to be like this big SWAT guy or girl, and they want you to carefully weigh up your decisions, and it's a tactical sort of slower paced shooter. But I know for me, I personally prefer fast-paced movement and different movement techniques, and sliding and jumping around, and sometimes having like a double jump or like boosters or things like that. Like I like when the movement and the shooting are like both almost as important as each other in terms of the game, and it's not just like the focus is on aim and shooting and picking your load out and making decisions. I kind of prefer when a lot of it in terms of the twitch reflexes is based on the movement and the shooting combined. So despite that, I still enjoyed it, and I found the PvE and the stealth really engaging. I feel like I'm still so early that it'll ramp up, but it does a good job of the stealth feels quite satisfying and easy in some ways. But then when you alert everyone, it the game totally changes in that you'll like swap to your other weapon, and it's about like neutralizing the threat as quickly as possible. And you take tons of damage, and it's hard to get health back, and it's this really brutal experience when everything's alerted, and that makes the stealth feel more satisfying because you know, like if you're doing like a perfect run, you know that how high the stakes are essentially. Like, oh, if I fuck this up, then it's going to be like really really bad. So then when you do well, you feel a lot better about it because it feels, I guess, more real. It feels you're more immersed in the game in that sense. So I think the difficulty in the design is quite clever. And when I did all the objectives in one mission stealthily, I recovered an operator of mine that had been captured. So when you die, you like lose access to the character that you died with, and you have to rescue them on a future mission to get them back. So that's like another really cool, like
I love
raising
that
the stakes,
mechanic.
consequences type gameplay mechanic.
That is a
Uh,
super cool mechanic, dude. Like,
yeah, and
very unique.
when you like rescue him, like it's like a whole thing to like you have to like pull him out of this like goop, and you have to like shoot these nodes to try and like get him out. And then when you get him out, you have to also carry him to the extraction zone as well, which means you're really
Oh, that's
slow and you can
cool.
only have a pistol. So it's like you're going on like this big like rescue mission while also trying to do these other objectives as well. Like it adds on to what you have to do. So I did this one match where I'd like done all the objectives, done everything stealthily, rescued my guy, and when I won the mission, I got like loads of XP challenges and tons of achievements, which is always a great feeling when you stack achievements or trophies and they just like pop one after the other,
Yeah,
like
dude.
boom, 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 boom,
Yes,
boom.
dude.
So that really hit me in the dopamine receptors because not only was I like satisfied with the stealth and the gameplay and how brutal the game can be, but then you get all those rewards at the end, and I'm like, I could, I stopped playing after that point, and it was like only after like 2 matches, but I was like, this was a great time, and I could have easily just like kept going for like 4 or 5 hours because yeah, it was really good.
Wow, I can't believe that. That
Yeah,
is
I can't believe I like it as well. But I mean, it shows that you shouldn't you should always try to keep an open mind and try games for yourself if you can, or at least like don't fully like commit to an opinion without like playing a game or giving a game like a fair shot. I'd say in terms of looking at reviews and stuff like that. I mean, it's tough because when you play enough games, when you watch gameplay and you watch reviews, I think gameplay, especially like just raw gameplay, I feel like you can get a good idea of how it plays and if it's for you or not. Like when Saints Row came out recently, and watching gameplay for that, I'm kind of like, I really don't think I'd like this, and I feel like you can know to some extent, but it's still important to just not be fully, I guess, committed to an opinion until you play something and play it enough to sort of give it a chance to sort of win you over. So
yeah,
that was a nice surprise.
yeah, with things like that too. It's like when I first saw it, I was like, I'm interested in that. Like I like aliens and I like the mechanics of Siege, but it just was like one of those things where it's Ubisoft, dude. Like I'm not day one for that ever anymore. Like, like
Yeah, I mean, for me, Ubisoft sent me a code for it, and also it was another Game Pass game on day one. So for me, it was like
amazing.
a
Amazing.
much easier commitment to make, and it makes sense for like a co-op game to Back for Blood did that as well. Deep Rock Galactic is on Game Pass as well. That Z, World War Z game was on there. It makes sense for that genre, I feel like. But
It really
yeah, I
does.
mean, it seems like for that game, Game Pass didn't really help it that much because I still feel like it came out and nobody cared about it. But I feel like it really wasn't marketed well by Ubisoft. I think they've had kind of a bad run recently with stuff that isn't Far Cry, basically, in terms of getting people excited and like ready for more in terms of what they're offering. But yeah, afterwards I played GTA Vice City Definitive Edition. Love this game. Need to go back to it. I just did a 30-second wheelie on the beach for an achievement. That was fun. Went well. Psychonauts 2, played that. I played only like 2 minutes of it, which is going to disappoint everyone. I already know, because I have nothing else to say about it other than I just like. I'd done the first level before, and then there's an achievement that I could get that was in like the main hub place. A couple of achievements actually to do with like pins and stuff. So I just did those and then quit the game. So I need to go back to it. I've had like no problems with it at all. I did when I went back to it, I realized it had been too long though, and I think I'll want to restart that game. And it was only like the first mission that I'd done, so I may as well. I also, so my final game for this achievement quest of A to Z
I find this so
was
cool that you did this. I can't, like, this is something that I miss out on because I use PSN profiles, but I definitely want to check to see if True Trophies is doing this because this is fucking cool, dude. It's fucking cool.
yeah, it's nice. And there's no like pressure to do it. It's just like all for fun in terms of just doing it whenever. And the time limit's quite generous on stuff like this as well. I think you have like a whole month to do it, and I did it in like a week and a half or so. But you could, and you can make it like as difficult or as easy as you want for yourself. Because what's quite cool about it is when it gives you the list of achievements, it gives you it like in order of rarity. So, like the first ones with the letter that you need are like the least rare, and so the easiest in theory. Sometimes that's not always true because sometimes rare achievements can be quite easy, weirdly, and sometimes common ones can be quite tough. It depends on like the player base for that specific game, I think. But for the most part, you get like the list in order of easiest to hardest. So you can choose like how difficult you want like the next letter to be. If you want it to be like a press start to get an achievement, or if you want it to be like beat the game on, Nightmare or whatever. But
yeah.
the last letter I needed was Z, and there are a lot of, when I say a lot, the biggest amount of Z achievements, as you would probably predict, are zombie related and zombie game related. The Dead Rising games have achievements that are like, zombie genocider and stuff like that. Kill X zombies, and usually there's a few zombie achievements that are like that. Left 4 Dead has some, Dead Rising has some. I'm sure tons of other zombie games have them, or games with zombies have them, beginning with Z. But the achievement I went for was in Batman Arkham Asylum.
Whoa.
Because I've played Arkham Asylum on the 360, but I never played. I own the ports to Xbox One. I would say remasters, but I don't think they're really. I think they are pretty much just ports. I don't think there's much difference between them and the 360 release, but I might be wrong. But yeah, so I went to Arkham Asylum. The achievement I got is to knock out Zaz, who you knock him out around halfway through the game. It's like after the Bane fight. It's like after you get like the claw shot thing to pull vents from like the walls and to pull stuff down,
yeah.
and it's after you get the explosive gel as well. So it's roughly halfway through the game, I'd say, because it's past like the first it's past the first 2 Scarecrow fights as well. It's before you fight Killer Croc as well. So it's kind of maybe 40% through the game ish. So I just had like a really good time one day just playing about 3 to 4 hours of Arkham Asylum. It's been a long time since I played it. I really love that game. I'm going to definitely get the completion eventually on the Xbox One release. I probably won't go back for the 360 one as well, but I'd like to do the new one that I've now started essentially. And I figured it was a good achievement to end it on because it wasn't overly easy, but it wasn't like annoying either. It was like a nice playthrough. I did it on hard as well, which is cool. I forgot that on hard you don't get the the counter symbols, the like blue lightning bolts.
Oh.
Like when like an enemy's going to attack and you press Y.
Yeah. It's like above their head.
Yeah, you get like a blue lightning bolt, and then for the guys with knives, you get like a red one because you need to stun them with the cape. You can't like press Y.
Yeah.
On hard, you don't get any of those indicators, which I didn't realize. But I actually like it more because then you end up looking at the animations and like timing it yourself, which feels quite satisfying.
That is cool.
I still find it tough to maintain like a really high combo with a lot of guys because it's like sometimes you're just going like counter to counter to counter to counter, and sometimes you get given like way more space than you probably should, and then you sort of get paranoid and counter early, at least in my experience. And also, it's tough to try to integrate all of the moves into your combo. So, like, punch a guy and then like throw a batarang at him, and then claw one towards you, and that type of thing to like raise your like free flow multiplier even higher. But yeah, really fun game. Want to play more of it. And that was everything in terms of the A to Z challenge. I also played Space Science Investigations, which is a free NASA game. And there's another NASA game that I've played before, which is like this like trading card game thing, and that game sucks. I don't like it. I'm annoyed that I started that game because it's an easy completion, but it's like a 3 to 4 hour completion, at least for me, because I'm an idiot. So it means that it's like still more of a commitment than I'd like it to be. But this game is a lot better. It's educational. It's not very long. Maka has a guide for it, which is about 30 minutes.
Did you play this earlier this year?
No.
Okay, because I thought you played a NASA game earlier this year.
Yeah, that's the other one. That's the card
That is the
game
other one?
that sucks.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was that one.
Yeah, this one's a new one, which is
Okay.
it's like a first person. You fly around like the International Space Station, and you look at stuff and you interact with stuff, and it teaches you some stuff with videos as well. It's okay. It's fine. I also played Immortality, which is the Sam Barlow game who did Her Story and Telling Lies, and I think he wrote Silent Hill Shattered Memories as well. It came out last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, as a day one Game Pass game. I think this is my favorite game from him, but I'm really more torn on it than I thought I would be in some ways. I think I had a really good time with it. So it's an FMV game where you're basically watching videos and you're trying to find out what happened to this actress called Marissa Marcel. So you have 3, I guess, fictitious movies. So, they're not real movies. They're made for the purpose of the game, kind of obviously. But it's kind of complicated in the way the game layers its narrative in some ways. And I'm not sure if all of it is earned, but I do still quite like it. But you've got these 3 movies, and then you've got like behind the scenes of those movies and interviews about those movies and like rehearsals for those movies and line readings and that kind of thing. And the films are like spread out by a few years, and you go through the clips, and the way you interact with them is you zoom in on like an object or a face or a person in the frame, and then that will like match cut with I think it tries to be the same. So like a person who looks the same or is the same person in the same kind of, I don't know, like wearing the same clothes or the same bracelet or something, for example. And it matches it with that, and it takes you to another clip, and then you go through that clip, and then you click on something, and then that takes you to another clip, and so on. But it's done in a non-linear way, so you never know where you're going to end up when you interact with something. So it'll just take you to another clip, and that can be anywhere in the timeline, and to do with like any of the 3 movies. Like, it doesn't have to be the same movie, which it kind of annoyed me at first. It annoyed me in some ways because it's like you really want to find out like the story, and you really want to understand like the story, the stories of the actual movies, B, the sort of main, thrust of the game of like what happened to this woman. And a lot of the time you're sort of going between clips and unable to draw connections between them, especially early on, because they're so disconnected from each other. And then you also get this issue where some of the game is quite boring, I think, because you don't understand why or how it's relevant. So I feel like the start of this game is really strong, and it does some interesting things. And then the middle of the game, for me, kind of dropped off because I was like, I don't really get it. Like, I feel like I'm not getting any closer to understanding what's going on. And then the end of the game, like when things come into perspective and you're able to discover different things and like some clips recontextualize old clips, it's quite clever, like really clever in like a puzzle box type sense. And I think all of the performances are great. And I think the films, when you can actually like stay on track with them, are interesting. And I'm not sure. I don't want to go into spoilers with anything as well, so it's difficult to talk about the game in any sort of depth. I'd recommend it quite strongly still because I find that it has stuck with me more than most narrative games. And
Where did you play this?
I played it on Xbox.
I'm very curious. Does it have like an interface like it's a PC?
You have like a cursor that you move
Yeah.
around.
See, and I was thinking with games like this, I think they suit better for PC because then you get a little bit more immersed in that idea that like, so when you boot up the game, you're kind of like on a monitor or something, and then you get to click around that
Right, yeah.
monitor.
It doesn't control brilliantly because you're also a lot of the time you can be like you can fast forward and you can rewind and you can go frame by frame and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would control better on PC as well. I think the
Well, at least
game's
mouse
really
and
cool to
keyboard.
talk about to people. And what I love about it is that there's so many layers to it and there's so much going on that different people will get different things out of it. And because of how non-linear it is, people will go through the journey in different ways. Like I was talking to some people while they were playing it, and it's like you sort of share notes at some point. You're like, how did you get this thing? Like, I had this thing happen and I don't know how I had it happen, but and that kind of thing. You have those discussions about it, and it's got like lots of secrets and things to find that are fascinating. It's a very sort of intricate puzzle, I guess, to solve. And yeah, I mean, it's tough because I've seen a lot of people say the game's a masterpiece, give it a 10 out of 10. I know on OpenCritic it has like a 92 or a 91 or something. So people really connect with it, but I can tell it's not for everyone while I play it. And I feel like for me, I could easily see when I was like kind of bored by it, if I dropped it then, I feel like I'd be like, this game sucks. Like there's nothing interesting about it. But because I like played through the whole thing and discovered more and more about it, it made it worth it. And I think it's great. I'm not sure if I'm as positive as many of the reviews are. And it's something where I don't have all the achievements. One of the achievements was glitched, which is obviously really annoying. It's
Oh.
been fixed now. They fixed it really quickly. So they fixed it within like a week. So I need to go back to it to get the achievements. And then that will mean getting more clips as well. So I've not seen absolutely everything from the game. And it was on like an uphill trajectory when I was last playing it. But I feel like I understand most of what's going on. And I'd recommend it to people, but it's kind of tentative because you have to be in the right mood for it and you have to be like the right type of person that would engage with this kind of game because it is really like you sit back and watch this game and the performances and the writing are great, I think. Especially, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a backhanded insult, and I guess it is to some extent. But I'd say, especially for like gaming, it's very good. Like, I'm not sure how it would stand up if it was like a film or a TV show in its own right. I feel like there it would probably be weaker, but as a game, it kind of works better. So yeah, I'd recommend it. I think you might love this game more than me, and it's my favorite from the writer. From what I've played, I've played Telling Lies and Her Story, I believe. So
See,
yeah,
I'm familiar with Her Story, and that's the one that I would play probably on PC because I do know that it's like it's you're like going around files on a computer and stuff, and I'm like, it would just feel so immersive to do that on a PC. But I don't know how I feel about games like this because you were saying like people give it a 10 out of 10, and for me, this is something that I've been dealing with a lot since I've been like rating games on Backlogged. But whenever I think about how I'm going to rate something, if I don't ever, like if I'm good with putting the game down and never picking it up again, it usually loses like maybe 2 points or a point, because it's like, how is that relevant like as a great game? It just, I think the games inherently how they are, and same with movies and anything else, is like if you love something, you should want to probably do it again. If you had infinite time, like you would play it again, or you would watch it again, or do whatever. And I'm like, if there's a story game that I'm good and I don't ever need to replay it, it's going to drop a couple points because just is that way for me. And I'm curious like how this is for people, if they're like, man, in a couple years I'd love to replay this because it's so good.
Yeah, I don't think it's a game where you necessarily replay it, but for
Right.
me, that's not how. Like, I don't necessarily see things that way. I think games can, games are sort of can be intentionally designed so that they're
One and
meant to
done.
be played once and then that's it, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's fine if it's part of the design. But I think I kind of feel similarly about it to how I felt about 12 minutes. It kind of reminds me of that game where it's like you had, some reviewers that were like super positive about it, some that like absolutely hated it, and I'm sure that's going to be the same with Immortality. And then, I liked it. I thought it was a really fun game and really interesting, and it had, similar to this game, it had like layers to its narrative where it was like, you think one thing's going on, but it might be some other thing, and then piecing everything together can be really satisfying by the end of it. And that's how I feel about this. Like the games have a lot of parallels with each other, both in terms of their, I suppose, controversial aspects and in terms of what people love about them. And for me, I feel like I've been more negative than I really am about the game because it's, I think, my second favorite new game of this year after Elden Ring. But as we're going to talk about later, it's been a backlog year. So, second place isn't necessarily as big an endorsement as it would be perhaps in other years at the moment.
Absolutely. And was that your last game?
No, so I've got a Plague
Oh.
Tale as
Oh
well.
yeah. I can't wait.
So this game leaves Game Pass on the 15th of September, and the sequel comes out October 18th. And so I felt like I've got to play it now, basically, because it's going to leave Game Pass, and I want to play the sequel if I like the original. And I enjoyed Plague Tale. At first, I'd say I was really loving it. Like, at first, I was like, this game is incredible. The first, I don't know, 4 chapters or so, maybe. And I don't want to go into like spoilers of like, I feel like I'd need spoilers to talk about why, but I was really hooked by the world and the characters. And eventually the game kind of lost me a little, but not like to an extent where it's like the game was disappointing or the game was bad or anything like that. Like the game's probably a 7 out of 10 for me because it still is really competent and engaging and fun in terms of how fresh and unique it feels in terms of like, I guess this, I mean, it's almost like a, like a, this like third person action adventures type stealth game.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's the setting and what's going on. Like the Black Plague, dude, is like, you don't see this a lot in games, and that time period and just like the way that it's set, and it just kind of, like you said, those first 4 chapters, it's rolling, man. A lot's happening, and it's just kind of like chaotic, and
Yeah,
it's really cool. But
I think I'm quite a negative person, and I really appreciate the time period is really oppressive, and then also the like you've got like these threats from the Inquisition and the English, and then you've got this threat from the rats, you've got this threat from disease, and you've got threat from like scared villagers that are just like in the mix as well. So it feels like really bleak. Like it feels like there's nowhere that's safe. There's nowhere that's really calm, and that really does a good job in terms of the setting and the time period because it would really suck to be alive back then. I feel like, I mean, I'm sure it being more simple is probably positive, but it's the type of game where you play it and you're like really thankful that You know, like you feel like life sucks sometimes, but you're like it could be way worse, historically speaking. So
When I first finished that game, when I was talking about it to other people, all I kept saying was like, "Man, if this game had just a little more budget, like if this game had just a little more budget, this game would have been incredible." Like, because I've kind of came out in the same area. I was like, it's an 8 out of 10 for me. Like, it was good, but it wasn't great. It
yeah, at
wasn't there
first I
yet.
was so like, this is unique and I've never played anything like it. But then I think the gameplay, like initially with the sling, it's like it feels really satisfying to like hit people in the head with it. But then
Yeah,
eventually it's kind of like, I don't know, the illusion of it being unique kind of fades, because then you get like they introduce crafting, and you crouch around and it's like, oh, you build this to get rid of the helmets, and then you hit them in the head, and it's like the same thing over and over again. And the amount of games where you crouch walk and open a backpack to crouch to craft a thing, and then shoot the thing at the guys and ammo present, like it just feels, I don't know, yeah, like the setting and the story and the start of the game, when it's like introducing all of these things, it feels really unique. And then eventually it's like, okay, so now we're just like a standard like narrative focused stealth action game, I guess. And yeah, it can be kind of, I don't know, like the level design isn't really that interesting. There's stuff where you like go back to the same places multiple times as well, and that feels, like you said, about like a lack of budget perhaps, where it's like they had to maybe stretch out the chapters and couldn't give you like as many unique environments and different set pieces. And I think the story as well, kind of, there's a few chapters where the story feels like it kind of stalls, like it's like, okay, so now it's just like there's a few chapters where it's just like dudes hanging out, basically. It's like, oh, just chilling, and it's like, I don't know, I feel like it kind of kills the pacing a little. So yeah, I really like the game, and I highly recommend it. I hope that, I mean, the sequel has so much potential as well in terms of how they can build off of it, because the game intentionally limits like your combat abilities, it limits your stealth abilities as well. There's not really much going on in terms of gameplay, so you feel like the sequel can capitalize on that, either in terms of expanding like the weapon systems and maybe evasion, and also in terms of enhancing the stealth and maybe giving you some more abilities in that sense as well. But also obviously scaling up the threats and the enemies to account for that. I feel like the sequel has like a perfect opportunity, because the first game is kind of quite reserved in terms of the tools that it gives you for the most part, until kind of, I'd say, maybe the end is a bit different. But yeah, highly recommended. If you have time to play it before it leaves Game Pass, you should. But the sequel, it's probably going to be a day one play for me. And yeah, I was really surprised by this. I shouldn't have put off this game for so long.
yeah. And again, another thing, you were talking about all the stuff that they just. I'm telling you, dude, budget would help with all that stuff. The variety, the enemy density, all kinds of stuff. And it's like, man, I think they have the budget on this next game, and it could look really, really, really good. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
for
very
sure.
excited for that
And
game.
it's an easy completion as well. It's only like 8 to 15 hours, depending on if
Yeah,
you use a guide for collectibles, or if you need to restart chapters, or for
that's what I was
getting
about to
resources and
ask
stuff
you.
like that.
I was about to ask you, was it two playthroughs or was it one with a guide and two if you don't use a guide?
No, it was one. It took me about 8 hours, and I used a collectible guide for it. Yeah, so just looking for the collectibles, really.
Okay.
But even without, I think you can just use chapter select for a lot of the collectibles, and it's quite quick because the chapters aren't very long. I think there's a lot of chapters. There's like 18 chapters, but the game's not that long. Most of the chapters are like 10, 20 minutes, so it's quite quick to go back to get stuff. I think the only problem is for like there's an achievement for all of the upgrades for your sling,
Yeah.
and that's quite tough if you've not, like, the way it saves the game is when you go back to chapter select, it will save your resources that you've collected. And even if you beat the chapter and move on to the next one, if you'd already got to that chapter before, it like resets your progress on resources apparently. So I think that can screw people over. But there is a glitch that lets you do like all of the upgrades at chapter 10 as well. So and you can also do it in one playthrough anyway, so even without the glitch, you can just get enough resources and be fine. So I didn't find it too difficult. Yeah, there's no like difficulty specific stuff. There's like all the achievements except for the collectibles are just like miscellaneous, like small things as well. Finding secrets, things like that, which are basically like their own form of collectibles, really. But finally, I've also been playing Call of Duty World War II. So I started this due to the A to Z challenge, but I'd got far enough into the campaign that I thought I may as well finish it. And I want to play through all of the COD campaigns anyway. I've played through most of them, but this was one that I never got to. And I'd already got all the multiplayer achievements. So what I normally do when a Call of Duty game comes out is I get the multiplayer achievements first, because it's like you need to get them out of the way, because when the servers die or when all the players become too good, then you're fucked at that point. So get the multiplayer stuff first, and then you just have like campaign and zombies, and that's going to be like way easier than leaving the multiplayer for last and then needing to like struggle through with either against players that know what they're doing or struggling to find lobbies in game modes that you want to play. And sometimes you get achievements that are on game modes that no one likes, and then it's like really impossible. So always do the multiplayer stuff first, then do everything else after. And that's how I do it. That's my advice for anyone trying to get all the achievements in the COD games. So that'll be what I'll do with Modern Warfare 2 as well. So I've done the campaign on Veteran. I've got all the campaign achievements, but I've got to say, I think it's one of the worst COD campaigns that I've played. Maybe the worst. Definitely of the past few years, but it still wasn't like offensively bad. It was totally serviceable and fine. It's just like the level design and the story are really forgettable, for me at least. I feel like it's like it doesn't take any risks with where it goes. It doesn't. You play it and you wish you were just playing like Wolfenstein: The New Order, because it's just like that game goes like crazy, and like the weapons are more satisfying, the levels are so much more memorable, the options in terms of stealth and like the maps are like huge for you to explore and like however you want to go through it. Like I was playing it and I was like, I really, really wish I was playing this other Nazi killing game instead of this one. And the story, it's not like innately bad, but they don't go anywhere with the characters. Like you're stuck with this one squad for the whole game, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, because I feel like with World War II as your setting, it's a really good opportunity to have like, to have like a British campaign, to have like an American campaign, to have like a Russian campaign. And then you can do like lots of different things with the geography and like, kind of like a greatest hits collection of like the war at that point. But this game decides to stay on one squad, this American squad on the Western Front, and they're just like pushing through like France and liberating France and, going through to Poland and all of that. And that's fine. But I feel like if you do that, the central squad of characters has to be really compelling. You have to really care about them. You want them to like get out of every situation. You want them to, I don't know, have a good relationship with each other that's compelling in some way, play off of each other. And they try to do it with gameplay, because you can request supplies from different squad mates. So like from the medic, you can get health. From the grenadier, you can get grenades, that kind of thing. But, and I appreciate that they could maybe make that connection between them and you, because then if you're not with them, then it's like you lose a resource in gameplay, and so that feels like it has more emotional weight to losing them rather than just like losing them in a cutscene or being separated in a cutscene. But the characters really weren't interesting to me. Everything felt quite predictable in terms of the story. They sort of set up like, oh, maybe like the leader of your group is a bit nuts. He's gone a bit crazy because of the war, and he offers, he gives you an order, but the order isn't like a good order. You think it's either bad like strategically, or it's bad in terms of its like suicide. And so then it's like, oh, the conflict between, obeying orders and disobeying orders, and this guy is going to get us all killed, but we can't overthrow him. And I feel like it's been done a lot of times before, and it's not really done in like a powerful way in this game, and it doesn't deliver on anything. Everything just feels so safe and dull, and it's just really repetitive. But I was impressed by some things. I mean, all the achievements work fine. Veteran is enjoyable. The guns are fun to use. I mean, they're not amazing. They're not that like super interesting, but they're satisfying enough. The movement's fine, and the game has ridiculous production values in a good way. You know what's always really impressive about Call of Duty is because they have a million different teams working on this, and the budget must be insane. That when you play it, it's kind of like you really get a sense for like how much money and how many people and how much time has been put into this, and it's good as well in the sense of most COD players don't care about the campaign at all, and yet they still provide this campaign with like fantastic looking cutscenes and somewhat engaging set pieces, and everything has that like level of polish that kind of makes you sit back in awe sometimes, but it's all to serve something which fundamentally isn't that fun or compelling, which is a shame. So yeah, I don't recommend the campaign, but I'm not like you should actively avoid it either, because it's got easy achievements and it's totally fine. If you like playing Call of Duty, you're gonna have like an alright time with it, and so there's a lot worse that you could do, and it's only like 5 hours long as well, which helps in terms of if it was like 15 hours, I feel like I'd want to die by the end of it, but 5 hours was fine. The other stuff I
That
was doing. Oh, sorry, you go.
with what you were saying about Call of Duty and the budget and how many people work on it, dude, I felt that way when I played the new Modern Warfare. It was like I was like, wow, like I just imagine like what is it? Avatar is the highest like
Yeah,
budget movie ever, and it's like that's what this game is. Like,
yeah,
sure,
it
it's
feels
so
especially
high budget.
ridiculous because of the fact that they get one out every year, right? Like
Yeah,
they get it out every year, but it's like it's not quite like Rockstar, like Naughty Dog level, but it's really close. It's like really close to that level of like budget and like I don't know, like effort put into it. I think it's like it's always like creatively less interesting. It's the issue
yeah,
is like I've been saying about this, the issue is the creative part, right? Because it's kind of it's not the same thing over and over, but a lot of the time it's very similar and very safe because it's this huge like mass market product, and it feels more like a product than a piece of art sometimes as well. So like creatively it's not all there, but in terms of like the amount of money and like production that goes into it, it's like you play it and it's ridiculous, and it feels especially ridiculous when you're like they put out one of these things every single year, and it's like they do it like without fail somehow, and it's crazy. You sort of play it and you're like, even if this is like mediocre, you're like it's wild that they can produce this at this level and do it so regularly. Yeah. The other thing I've been doing in COD World War II is I have zombies achievements to get, and I've got all of those. I got all of them yesterday. The Easter egg in this zombies map, the zombies map's really fun. I quite like it. And thank God the Easter egg can be done solo, because some of the Easter eggs in zombies in past games, they have to be done in co-op, in like 2 player, or I think 1 or 2 require 4 player co-op, which I hate. Like I really wish they'd just let you do stuff solo, because finding like 3 other people that are as dedicated, that have the same like timings, and that a lot of these Easter eggs you have to like learn the steps. Like you have to go and like you basically have to like study for it essentially. And when you play multiplayer, you can't pause the game either. So you have to like have this information in your head, because you don't have time to like pause it and like look stuff up. So doing it co-op is like a ridiculous amount of effort. I mean, it's easier if you do get like if you get 4 dedicated people, it's easier to do stuff co-op than it is solo. But I really appreciate about this Easter egg that you can fully do it solo. However, each attempt takes minimum 2 hours, maximum probably 4 hours, closer to 3. And so I felt myself going insane because it's really difficult. Some of it requires RNG, at least in terms of doing it on like a low round. And if you go to a high round in zombies, it's much more difficult. to actually stay alive. So in terms of like balancing the points, it's tough. In terms of the amount of steps, it's outrageous. The amount of stuff you have to do is it's like a textbook worth of stuff that you have to do. You can pause at any time, which like thank God it lets you do that. But it's like there's like a million things you have to do. I mean, I should send you at some point the like guides that I used for it, because it's like you'll get like a 25-minute video telling you what to do, and it'll be like sped up most of the time in terms of the gameplay. And then also it'll be like, we don't have time in this video, so here's a bunch of stuff that you also have to do. And it's like a wall of text like on the screen. It's like 10 steps. It's like do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and then move on to the next round. And then it's like got all that. So if the video covered like absolutely everything in normal speed, it'd be like 2.5 hours long. It's ridiculous. It's like a whole game in itself, basically, and that's per attempt. So if you like mess it up, if your game crashes like 2 hours in, it's over. You gotta do it again. So I never had any like technical issues, thankfully. It was just like either I'd just get like bad luck and like a thing wouldn't spawn when it's like has a chance to spawn. There's a lot of stuff where you have to keep like special types of zombies alive and then like kill them in a particular way. But it's like if you kill them in the wrong way, then it takes ages for them to like spawn back. Like it's like several rounds in the future and like way harder. So it's worth just like resetting at that point. Yeah, it's a really tough Easter egg, but it was fun. I think the zombies mode is easily better than the campaign and probably better than the multiplayer as well, actually. So yeah, I enjoyed COD World War II, have the completion. I might get the DLC because the DLC, all the achievements are based on zombies, and I enjoyed the zombies, even though it was hell. I enjoyed the zombies, and I've heard the other Easter eggs aren't quite as bad as the first one. And also, the DLC has 2,000 gamer score, so it takes you up to 3,000 overall if you get all the DLC. So I might go back and do that. I'm not sure. Part of me wants to wait until if Xbox buy Activision. I don't think the DLC will end up on Game Pass, but I could imagine they might do like a Activision Blizzard like celebration sale, that kind of thing, where they do like a like like the day like the acquisition is finalized, they might be like, oh, big sale on all the DLC and all the games and stuff, and here's all the stuff coming to Game Pass, that kind of thing. But I mean, that acquisition is going to take, if it happens, it'll probably be the middle of next year, and it might not happen at all. And also, a lot of the stuff might be like stuck in contracts in terms of marketing with Sony and that kind of thing. And then also, they might not even want to do a sale on the DLC. So there's a lot of factors that kind of go against this. So I'll probably just end up buying the DLC anyway. Maybe if it goes on like a smaller sale in the next few months, or just buy maybe one of them for full price, do the DLC, see if I feel like doing the next one afterwards and taking it from there perhaps. But yeah, Activision Blizzard, they, especially for Call of Duty, they keep those games at a pretty high price, and the DLC stays at a high price, especially, even more so than the games. And, I understand why they sell like crazy, but that's it. That's all of my games, finally.
Dude, you got so much gaming in. It's amazing. I don't have nearly as much, and I actually even shortened it. This is an interesting thing that happened, and I will explain it as I go about. But the first game, and I did get the platinum that I played, was Sifu. It's platinum number 237, and dude, I love this game. Holy shit, it was so fun. I played it on normal to begin, and I think I finished the game at age 53, and I kept replaying levels. Like, it wasn't something where I just played through all the way to the end. I just was like, the first level, I beat it, and I was like, yeah, I'm playing the first level again, and I'm gonna get like a better, because the way that it works is like you play that level, and then whatever age you get at the end, you can start the next level, and it will checkpoint it there. And so I just start over and be like, what's the lowest age I can get on this? Because there's 2 playthroughs that you have to do. Well, I take that back. There's one playthrough where you have to get through the game at age 25 or less. And so when I'm thinking about how I want to do this, it's like, if on my first run, if I want to get close to that, where I am age 30 or something on my first playthrough, then I got to be the lowest possible I can on each level. And then I got really good at every level, and I really, really enjoyed it. And the art direction is so good, dude. I really hope this is like, whenever GOTY conversation comes around, I hope people are saying this. I hope like it's in their conversation. I hope people are like, did you play Sifu? Because that game was, it's a runner-up to Elden Ring. It's a runner-up to Horizon or whatever. It's like, or maybe it's better than those. And it's just like, man, it's concise. There's 5 missions. It's just about mastering the game, which I think is so fucking cool because, you know, it's a fighter of some kind. So
Yeah, something that's nice about this year in terms of slower releases on the AAA front is that it means stuff like Sifu and Tunic and Immortality, they get sort of more of a spotlight, right? Because I said like Immortality is my second best game of this year and you really love Sifu, and it's nice to sort of have like, I don't know, like the pace of indie games feels like it hasn't suffered as much as the pace of AAA games. And so that means that you're going to get more representation of indies in terms of game of the year conversations than you would in a typical year, which is good because I think it will encourage more people to play indie games potentially because, you know, they're near and dear to me because I think a ton of indie games are like better than, you know, most AAA games. I don't think there's really, you know, we've talked this episode a lot about budget, but and how budget can improve things, but if you've got like a simple idea that's like executed well at like a scale that like knows its own limits, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like you can make a masterpiece with a low budget. You know, it's more difficult and there's, you know, you probably have to be more creative in a lot of ways, but you know, at the end of the day, like for me, I think some people have like a, I don't know, they kind of turn their nose up at like indies in terms of like, oh, you know, this is good, but it's not, you know, it's not as good as, you know,
Call
AAA
of Duty.
game, you know,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, for me, there's not that like distinction, like a game's a game, and there's tons of indie games where I've played them for hundreds of hours, and I'd rather play even more of them than so many AAA games. So yeah, for me, it's nice that you've got this like steady flow still of indie games while sort of AAA isn't around. So hopefully, towards the end of the year, they do get more of a spotlight, and they do get more of a spotlight when they come out as well.
With a lot of my friends, I talk doom and gloom a lot about like single player, the state of the industry, and like I don't really have a positive outlook on it. I keep thinking like, man, the monetization is getting really bad in the games industry. If they're not doing that, I mean, look at Sony, dude. They used to be like a huge temple for like single player games, and now they have 10 live service games in development. It's like, bro, what is happening? Like, it seems to be trending in the opposite direction. Maybe it's just to catch up with like the rest of the industry, or I don't know, but it's like, man, I'm going to be really disappointed in these next coming years with Sony's output because those aren't my kind of games. I like single player, but I always tell my friends is like indies are leading the way, man. They like I'm not going to say single player is dead because I know that the single player games are going to come out of these indie studios and they're going to be fucking awesome. Sifu is like the shining example of that. You know what else is from this year that's a shining example of that? Stray, dude. That game's not even like hardcore. It's just really fun and people like really enjoyed it. And like indie games, you know, like it doesn't have to be the most high budget thing ever, but they're really, really good single player games. And I really tried with Sifu. Like I went back and I played it on normal, probably about 4 or 5 hours for a couple nights. I probably put in around 30 hours. And then I just was like at this point where I'm like, I could platinum this on normal because I got to level 3 and I was age 23. And I was like, I could put in another week or 2 of time on this, or I can bump the difficulty down and finish it tonight. And I did that. I just bumped it down and I finished it that night. And I was like, that's awesome. Now I can play something else. And I texted a whole bunch of people and I was like, you know, like from Discord, and I was like, I know that you did it and you wanted me to stay strong on normal, but I'm just like, but time is so valuable. And I respect every person who got the platinum like, because this game launched without the difficulty patch. So there was no easy and there was no hard. It was just normal. That's like, there was one way to play the game. And that's like how I wanted to play it as the creator's intent. And I gotta say, I had a lot of fun when I bumped it down to easy. It didn't make the game easy by any stretch of the imagination. You still have to like work. You will die on easy. Like the game will kick your ass if you're not paying attention and some dude gets a good combo in on you and then you lose, half your health. It's scary. It can be very scary, and it's very, very fun. But it's like, because I put so much practice in on normal and I had reactive times that were faster and I had less damage to take and all that. So when I bumped it down to easy, it was significantly easier for me to get through the game. I mean, it probably, I don't know, it took maybe an hour or two to get all the way through like 3 bosses, and I didn't even like go up in age at all because I was just so good. And it was like, that's because I put the time in on normal. If I would have started on easy, I can imagine that would have been a grind. But because I was trying so hard, it's a pretty big difference between, like, you get a little bit more health and you take a little bit less damage on easy, but I don't think really the attacks change too much. The enemies don't slow down or anything like that. It's still quick, and they're not as aggressive. So you won't have like, maybe you'll only have 2 attacking you instead of 3 at the same time, or 3 instead of 4, depending on the scenario. And it can be really changing. But like I said, just the way the game is like built and how fluid it is, and like how responsive everything is. When you bump it down to easy and you kick ass, it feels so fucking good. It feels so fucking good. But I respect the hell out of people who had the perseverance to just do that. And like I said, AJ, you know that I platinumed Rogue Legacy this year, and it's like, dude, I could have done with a week or 2 more practice of Sifu, I could have easily done it. But I kind of was getting bored. There's 5 levels, and playing the same level for 5 hours at a time just to master it is very, very like repetitive and hard on me. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna knock it down. So I have like a little bit of shame in doing that, but I also had so much fun with the game that I can't even be mad or disappointed in myself, because it was so much fun. It was so much fun. It's a game I haven't deleted yet, because it's like, man, what if I want to get on one night and I want to run the museum? Like, what if I do? Because I could. It's fun. Like, just taking out guys with knives and then, picking up a weapon off the thing. Or like, there's a trophy where you throw somebody into the water, and it's like the way of the water, my friend. And it's like, you're up 3 stories and you threw them into a fountain and you just got a nice little trophy. And I'm like, that's just so awesome, because there's so much responsiveness. It's like, if you grab someone and you're close to railing, you throw them over the railing. Or maybe you're close and you see an execution, you press left, and then you do the execution, you do it up against the wall. Or if you don't want to do it up against the wall, then you can like push back. And it just feels like there's intent with the way that you see the combat going. And because of the way that the controls are set up, it's like you can just make sure that it happens in a fluid way. Now, will you be interrupted and blocked? That can happen, yes. But it feels really, really, really good. And I hear a lot of people complain about cheap deaths and stuff. And that's why, like, a lot of people complain to get the difficulty patch in. They're like, change the difficulty. It's too cheap. It's like, I don't know if it's cheap. There's definitely bosses where they will break your guard, and that does get annoying. But if you're perfect and you learn their movesets, I feel like obviously it's doable. A lot of people did it. So I didn't ever feel cheated or cheap by that, but I really love that game. It's one of the best games of 2022 for me, for sure. But the second game that I completed was Eye of the Somnium Files. It's number 238. In the Discord that we're in, AJ, everybody talks about this game, and I knew it was a story-based game, and I was like, this is what I want after a couple of games where I've been going hard on combat and like lack of story and just gameplay focus. So I kind of went into this game, and the funny thing is, and I think that if anybody listens to this, they're gonna laugh, but man, I fell asleep during this game a lot, and it wasn't exactly because it was boring, not at all. I actually thought it was super engaging and super good. It was just like the way that I was playing it. I'd sit down at night, I'd be in my chair, it'd be quiet, it'd be cozy, and then the way the music is set up, and I just was falling asleep over and over, and I'm like, I gotta get. And then there was just one night where, man, everything started to click with that game, and I constantly was like, it's a murder mystery, and it's like point and click kind of adventure. You click on someone, you choose your dialogue, you look around the room, you click on something, and then dialogue pops up, and you're like, well, I just learned something, so now I can take that to a different scene, and then it kind of like progresses like that. So there's really actually there's quick time events, and that's the gameplay. That's probably the most gameplay focused thing in there. It's just quick time events, and they're very, very easy, and they're very funny. Like, the game's got a lot of humor in it, I gotta say. But I kept trying out. Like, I would tell my friend, this is gonna happen, he's like, okay, and I'm like, yeah, I know it, I'm right. And then and then something would happen, and I would be so wrong, and I would be like, I called that the whole time. And it was just so much fun, dude. Like, the game really does have a lot of twists and turns, and I don't think anybody who tried to predict what was going on could predict what was happening. Like, it's so bizarre, and the way the game has timelines, so you're gonna finish you go down an arc based on your decisions, and it's like when you get to the end of it, you have to go back to a point where it diverges and then go down a different path, and the game isn't like Detroit Become Human or Heavy Rain or anything like that. It's got this, you don't see the same scenes over and over again. Like, I don't know if you've tried to platinum any of those games, but they kind of suck, because you will see a lot of the same scenes over and over again, and then it kind of diverges from there.
Yeah, they're awful, trying to like discover every pathway.
Yeah, but this one has like, there's these dream states. Okay, I guess this is another gameplay element. There's like these puzzle states of the game, and you just solve the puzzle different ways, and it completely changes everything. Literally everything. So like, you might trust a character by going in their dream, and like, they're like, trust me, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna trust you. And then the next time you play through, they're like, trust me, and you're like, no, fuck you. And then you like do other things in that dream state where you don't trust them, and like, that completely alters everything in the timeline. And then as you like go through the story, and I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I don't like want to spoil this for anybody, but as you go through the story, every arc that ends, that you see the ending to, and like the murder mystery, and you think you have a suspect, you think everything is going one way or another, it just continues to explain what you saw in the different timelines. And I finished the game, and I'm not really sure if I could say there's a definite timeline, not until I play the second one, but it really is. It's really a special game, and I'm really happy that I played it. That's why I'm like really excited. One of my friends is going to mail me his copy of the second one, and like, that way I don't have to buy it for $60 or anything like that. And it's just like, I'm really, really excited to play that game. So
nice. I mean, I feel like, I'm never gonna go anywhere near it, but
yeah, no, you're not, because it's very anime, dude. It's so anime, but it's anime, and it's fucking hilarious, dude. There's so much shit in this game where I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, it starts a sequence where like someone died, and then like the next sequence is like this character just fucking dancing for like 3 minutes, and it's like, why is this happening? Why? I don't know. It's so weird, but it's so great.
Sounds terrible, but I mean, for me, it's like like I feel like if I play a Weeb game, I have to play like Persona 5 or something. Like, I have to, like, that has to be, surely one of those has to be like the one if I try any of them, right? I feel like, but I don't know. Maybe I should poll people and see what people say.
I would say yes. Ask everyone, because they'll know a little better than I do. But I think that, AJ, if you play this game, I think you will laugh a lot. Like, is it an anime trope that you laugh at? Is it the ridiculousness of the game? Is it? And then I think that you'll thoroughly enjoy the narrative. The narrative is very, very funny, but it's also, I don't know, it's really cool how they did it. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff. Like, I was like, I don't understand how that happened. And then I keep playing, and I'm like, wait, what? And then that makes that, and it's just like, oh man, I can't go into it without spoiling stuff, but really good writing. And it doesn't feel like there's plot holes, which there should be, because there's so many timelines that you have to do. It's probably like 8 or 9 of them. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I can't wait to play the second one. I don't think I'm gonna like the second one as much as the first one, though. That's just my gut feeling, because I have heard that you play the different character in the second one, and I don't want I wanted the main character to be the same. But we'll see how it goes, because you never know. I'm gonna keep an open mind. But the last game that I'm playing, and it's something I started a couple nights ago, and man, I don't want to be negative on this game, but I'm playing Hat in Time, and I think it's just because of my mood. It's very like mid. It's I almost am tempted to turn on a podcast while I
How
play it,
far
but
in are
it's
you?
chapter 3,
Okay.
and
Yeah, I think it gets better as it goes along, honestly.
I think so too. That chapter is it chapters that it's in? Episode? I don't know. The second level, the second world, where it's like the two penguins or the birds that are creating movies. I didn't really like that one very much, and it was kind of like hitting a wall for me. But then when we got to like I'm on the third one where
Is that the
this.
spooky forest one?
Yes, it's so good. It's so cool. But I'm a little lost in the forest, so I think that I need to go buy a badge, or from like one of the shops where you can use your hats for a longer period of time, because there's like this fox mask that I put on, and then it can make objects like solid, but as I'm climbing up, the mask runs out, and then I can't get up to the top, and I'm like, God damn. So there's just like stuff where I have to backtrack, and that's been my biggest problem with the game. Is just the structure, where I'm like, I'm going through the first world, and then it locks out the last level, and I'm like, God damn it. Now I have to start the next one and like get whatever that needs to come back to this one. And Little Big Planet wasn't really like that. It was like you do world 1 and you can get all the collectibles and ace all of that stuff and then move to the next world. And I really like the way the games do that. And I understand that this one's being a little different because of the mustache girl and like the story threads that are running through every level. But I got to a point in the second level where it locked me out of another one, and then I'm probably going to hit a point in the third one, either where I get something and I can go back to the first two, or I'm going to hit another lock and I have to keep going.
Yeah,
And
I think I mean, kind of it has to be this way, but when you get further in, that stops happening, which is cool.
Okay.
Because when you unlock everything, it's like obviously then you can just do everything like first try at that point, which is nice.
Absolutely. But that's what I've been doing, is kind of like I got as many of the yarns as I could in the first level, or like first area, and the Mafia Town, that's what it's called. God, I really did like the level structure and the level design of that one. It's really cool, and especially the way that they toy with it. Like depending on if there's a mission, like different missions, it's generally it's a water level, but then one time it's like a lava level, and it's just so cool what they've done to like really spice up one area. And I'm having a good time. It's charming. The writing has made me laugh a couple times, which is it's super good. You don't see that much in games where there's some comedy. But like I said, I'm just hitting a wall. I think I just got to keep pushing through, because I don't know how I feel. It's just like it's average for me. It's a pretty average game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I gave it a 7 maybe.
Yeah,
And
that's what I would give it. 6 or 7.
I think it gets better as it goes on. So yeah, but I mean, it's like with anything, right? You have to be in the right mood for specific genres and subgenres, I think, and just yeah, there's stuff outside of your control that can change how you feel about something. I mean, that's why even, opinions and reviews in general, like they're all totally subjective, because they not only depend on personal opinion and experiences, but also sort of like intangible factors about, mood and how you can feel sort of going into it and what you've just finished playing and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I'd keep going with it just because I think it does get better as it goes along. And I think, it's one of those games as well where it's like you unlock these different hats that give you more abilities, but the abilities like stack on top of each other, right? So the hats at the start really aren't very interesting at all. But as you get more, they get like more interesting. But then also you use like those hats along with the previous hats to do more like platforming challenges. So it's like the complexity of the gameplay builds up, and then it becomes more satisfying and more challenging and interesting, because in my opinion a big problem with the early game is that it can be not too engaging because of how simple and straightforward everything is. And when things aren't simple and straightforward, it's not that the platforming is challenging. It's that you don't know what to do. Like you just like I don't know where to go or what I need to who I need to talk to or that kind of thing. Like it's that kind of difficulty which is always the worst kind of difficulty because it doesn't
Yeah.
feel satisfying, and the platforming is really easy at the start. So yeah, I think it gets better in terms of like the when you unlock more of the hats and you have to use them, switch out of using them and solving more puzzles with it and doing more difficult platforming with it. So yeah,
I can see myself liking that stuff a lot because I'm already seeing that and I love it. But it's just like what you said. It's the difficulty of like, I don't know what to do right now in the forest. Maybe I just need to like focus on some of the tasks that the dude gave me. But I just got to like this. So the exact part that I'm at is I'm in the haunted forest and there's like some goo or water or something, and when you get into it there's like these hands that'll drag you down and you have to like jump across these docks and stuff, and then there's like these trees that come out of that goo, and then they have like big leaves that you need to jump on and go up, and then that's what I was saying, is like I'm jumping up and then I fall through because I run out of the fox
I don't
mask.
think you need a badge that extends ability duration, if I'm not mistaken. So some of those areas have like objects that you can hit. I think they're bells, and those like
Oh.
extend like a wave that does the same thing the ability does, where it like makes it so you can stand on the platform. So I think what you're meant to do is you're meant to use those in combination with the hat ability, and then that gives you enough to get
that
through it.
that would make sense because what I'm trying to figure out, and I didn't spend too much time with this. It wasn't like 20 or 30 minutes, but it was like maybe 5. But there was these, so in the game there's like these little worms that you can pick up and you can put them in apples. And with the fox mask, you can see this little orb and then like a stand, like a bird stand, and you go up to it and you use the fox mask and you can see one of those little snake or little worm guys sitting on top of that. But then when the mask expires, nothing happens. So I think I need to bring something over to that to have it interact. But yeah, I mean, I'm not hating this game by any stretch of the imagination. It's just after the high of Sifu and Somnium Files, this is definitely like a lower point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
But you want to talk about the topic on the table because that's all I played.
Yeah, okay. So I'll go first in terms of the topic, if I'm interpreting it correctly, is and this has been a theme throughout the episode so far already, I'd say. But
Yeah, it
talking
has.
about new games versus old games in terms of what we've been playing in 2022, sort of this like backlog season that seemingly never ends at this point. How we're navigating that, whether we're playing new games a lot or, sticking to older stuff. I think we're both playing a lot of backlog stuff mostly. I wanted to say I feel some level of pressure because, we're getting to the end of the year and there's always like a pressure of like, what's my top 10 going to be? What's my top 5 going to be? What am I going to think about the Game Awards nominees and that kind of thing, right? That you always get towards the end of the year. If and it's not like a real pressure. It's just sort of like a this could be cool to talk about and to think about, and it's nice to sort of be up to speed with a lot of the game releases. But the problem is not much stuff has come out, and the stuff that has come out is, I don't know. It's like you have to be really into, I guess, everything in terms of wanting to try it. And there's been quite a few in terms of reception, I guess, duds this year as well,
Yeah.
and only a few sort of truly excellent games in the views of a lot of people. So I've been embracing the backlog, and I was thinking about the main new release like this year. I think unless and I think there's a decent chance that like Modern Warfare 2 is going to be a big game. God of War Ragnarok is going to be a big game. The Callisto Protocol is going to be a big game. I'd say Plague Tale probably isn't going to be that big of a game. I'm really looking forward to it, but I mean in terms of like what I'm building up to is Elden Ring essentially. So in terms of that type of dominates conversation and is sort of the zeitgeist and the thing that the year is going to be remembered for. Like how 2018 is remembered for God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it feels weird because Elden Ring came out so early in the year and then so little came out afterwards that it's like that game to me is like almost certainly going to be the game that this year is remembered for. But there's sort of a few of these like last minute releases that could be big enough to. I think it's very unlikely that they'd, I guess, dethrone it, if you want to use that terminology, I suppose, or I guess like usurp it in that sense. I don't think that's necessarily likely, but at least making things into, I guess, a two-horse race instead of a sort of single game that dominates. So for me, in terms of releases, I know that it's going to be Elden Ring as my big game, and that was the game where it took over conversation. It's been like the only event game for me. Like I loved Immortality as well, but not many people played that game. Not many people talked about that game, and it was also a game where it had like a moment and was important to me, but that moment was not as prolonged as what happened with Elden Ring. And it's like a big instant classic for a lot of people. And a lot of the discussion was really positive, both in terms of, I think, praising the game, but also in terms of the critiques of the game. I think, aside from, I think there were some stupid critiques, as there always are with games, but I feel like with Elden Ring, there was this sense of community where people really wanted to understand the lore, understand the story, understand the mechanics, and things are quite vague and in the FromSoft way and not fully explained to you. So people are trying to sort of puzzle it out together. And also, the game's so open and free as well that everyone has these different unique experiences of discovering things in different order. And some people missing things entirely, and some people seeing things that no one else is seeing, and talking about that kind of like when a big role playing game comes out from like Bethesda or from CD Projekt or developers like that, Obsidian, where you get that to generate discussion. So there were so many different angles of discussion in terms of how vague it is, how much discovery, exploration there is, and also in terms of like the build variety, the way you can play, what you can focus on. There's so many different things to unpick about that game. And it felt like it was like 2 months straight, essentially, where it was like that was all I was thinking about. And it felt like it was all the internet was thinking about for the most part.
It really was.
We talked about when Horizon Forbidden West came out, and it was, you know, we both thought that, it is really unfortunate for Guerrilla because it's not just, that by all accounts they've put out an excellent game, and yet just because of how, FromSoft captured lightning in a bottle in terms of like this cultural like storm, I guess, like this big, you know, moment for gamers, I suppose, if you want to put it that way, that their game, the discussion for it feels like it wasn't there. Like, and when it was like a lot of like dickheads were like making unfavorable comparisons on purpose, and
Yeah.
and trying to sort of turn it into this versus that, and would only, you know, Elden Ring felt like it was so dominant this year that it was like, even when people were trying to talk about other games, it was like always being compared to Elden Ring, which sucks. Ultimately, it wasn't. Games aren't given their own like fair shake, essentially. And you get that with other games as well in their respective years. When The Last of Us Part 2 came out, I feel like a lot of games end up compared to that because it's just like such a huge moment, and everyone, goes like, why can't other studios do animations like this, and that kind of thing. And some of it's reasonable and some of it's, good criticism, and others is kind of, annoying because it's not, considering the design limitations or budget limitations or whatever. And it's the same thing for Elden Ring, I feel like, where about the game itself, I feel like it was so positive to be in that like zeitgeist and to be along for the ride with everyone. But then there was some sourness in terms of how it was sort of branded like an industry standard type game or a thing to aspire to, which isn't untrue, but it lacks the nuance of a lot of things, and it just sort of takes over everything, the discussion. So for me, that will always stand out as like the 2022 new game that I played, and everything else kind of doesn't. I don't know. It kind of slips away in some sense. But I look through the list of games that I've played that came out this year, and it's Nobody Saves the World, Elden Ring, Tunic, The Quarry, A Memoir Blue, Escape Academy, Rainbow Six Extraction, Immortality, and of course, Power Wash Simulator. And that's everything, I think. So, of those games, only two really sort of massively stand out, which would be Elden Ring and Immortality. But Immortality, it has like that recency bias where it's still in my mind because I've just played it. But I feel like, in 5 years' time, when I look back to this year, it's probably just going to be Elden Ring that stands out. And everything else other than those games has been backlog stuff. And I feel like my list of new games isn't a terrible list, but I feel like it gets even worse when I consider that I haven't finished Nobody Saves the World, I haven't finished Tunic, and I haven't finished Rainbow Six Extraction. So I haven't finished Power Wash Sim as well, but it feels weird to talk about it in that sense because it's not going to change things up in the final few levels. So of all of the games that I've played this year, I've basically half of them I haven't even finished in terms of new releases. So yeah, the two things for me will be the backlog and Elden Ring ultimately.
Yeah. And I don't know, I didn't look at all the games that I played that were new this year, but as for the games that on my backlog that I did play, so Horizon Forbidden West was the first game that I played this year that was new. And then, god damn, dude, I haven't played anything new this year. Nothing. Ghostwire, that came out this year, right? And then Sifu.
Yeah, it did. Yep.
So those are my three. I literally played Horizon, Ghostwire, and Sifu.
You played Stray as well?
Oh yeah, that's true. Stray. And that's it. So 4 games this whole year that have been like 2022 releases. The rest, which I think I have 19 full like game completions. And so this year for me, I didn't play Elden Ring, but it's going to be remembered as like the backlog year.
Yeah.
Like a huge backlog year for me. And a lot of the games that I played were games that I really did want to play. Like last year at the Game Awards, Tales of Arise won Best RPG, and I was like, I want to play that so bad. It looks good. And I freaking enjoyed the hell out of that game at the beginning of this year. I kind of binged it because I loved it so much. And it's like probably my second favorite RPG of all time. So, I mean, it jumped up there pretty quick. It was awesome. The combat was really fun, and the visuals, dude, on the OLED, that shit was blinding me because it was so colorful and there was just so much going on, and it was just really, really fun. But so Tales of Arise, Persona 5 Strikers, Cyberpunk, Lost in Random, Stardew Valley, River City Girls, Far Cry 6. These are all games from last year, or not last year, but like not from this year. Pyre and Rogue Legacy, MLB The Show 21, and the Somnium Files. It's like a lot of these games, not particularly of this year, but a lot of them that were on the backlog that I have now taken off. And people are like, I caught up on my backlog, and I'm like, I don't understand that phrasing. We'll never understand that, because while I was playing Tales of Arise, about 8 games got added to my backlog.
Oh yeah, there's no way to keep up. And
no way.
On that
no
as
way
well,
possible.
I don't want to go through all of the the backlog games I've played, because listeners will already we talk about the games we play every week, but every couple of weeks. But for me, as in terms of old games, I've really loved Hollow Knight and Outer Wilds.
Nice.
So those are going to be games that I'm not gonna associate them with 2022 in the sense of releases, but in terms of games that now I'm like games that were great in their year, I'm still gonna acknowledge those as incredible and will probably stay with me forever. So yeah, it's been awesome to be able to play those, because in a busier year, I don't know if I would have gone for it if I would have been able to commit that amount of time for those games. And I'm so glad I did, that I didn't get, distracted by the shiny new thing instead.
I know what you mean. And I kind of go both ways on what you kind of explained there. Is like, I will think, just because of how I only played so far, there's a lot of year left, and I'm going to play a lot of new games. But so far in 2022, if I think back to it, like end of 2023, and I'm like, man, remember when I played all those backlog games? Because that's like what I did that year. And then it just, with the games that I played, like, and specifically, AJ, I wanted to talk about 3, the games that really stuck out for this year that I will look back on and I'll be like, in that year that they came out, they were really fucking awesome. And if, like, so Stardew, I think that came out in 2016, dude. That game is awesome. Like, it is so fucking good. And I've talked it to death, and I'm not going to continue to talk about it, but it's like, it's the first time I played it was in 2022, and it's my 3rd favorite game of all time. Like, that, it's not gonna, I don't know when it will be dethroned, but like, for some game this year to be jumping into my top 10 is really awesome, but it didn't come out this year. And like, that's where, like, that mark for me keeps getting, checked on 2022. It's like, man, my favorite game this year is Stardew, and that's not a 2022 game. So that's the biggest one that stands out. And then another one was River City Girls, which at the beginning of the year, I played this on Game Pass, and I kind of was just dipping my toes in because I had heard about it on podcasts and other people who had played it. And I like beat 'em ups, and I was like, I really want to see what this game's about. And it starts off a little slow. You don't have many combos or anything, but once you start like building up your money and your level, and you start unlocking more combos, the game just gets so fucking good. And then on top of that, if you play with a partner, it gets really good. So I played this early 2022, and then what happened was I put it down on Game Pass, and I was like, I'm going to pick that up on PlayStation because I want the platinum. I want that platinum trophy on my account, and I'm happy to support the devs that way. And so, I don't know, I had some downtime, I did have some downtime. Again, that's like what 2022 has been. So I finished a game, and then I'm like, what do I play next? And I think a buddy had it on his account, and I just was like, I'm going to, let me play that. And he's like, okay. And then we decided to co-op it. It could, because it's, you can share. And I'm like, that's so sick. And so then I had the solo experience on Xbox, jumped to PlayStation, got to play it on PlayStation, and then I got the platinum, and that was later in the year. And it was just so much fun for me. Like, the beat 'em up games, just that kind of, the art style, the story, everything about it was so good. And so that one stood out to me. It was like a really fun game. And then one last one, which got fixed this year, and that was Cyberpunk. And when you think back to the year that it came out, which was 2020, and it was busted, and the world was in chaos, and it was like not that bad on PC. And I think a lot of the reviews kind of showed that, because it was like there's no console reviews, and then all of a sudden PC reviews were like the only ones that were there, and they were really high. And it's like, no wonder they were high, because it is a good game. It just wasn't ready for console, and especially last gen console. Fuck that. Never ever want to play it. I would never recommend that game on last gen, but I played it. And what's exciting about this too is the anime comes out tomorrow. I know you're going to be all over that, AJ. But like, the game was really, really good. The writing and the animation, and like, graphically it was all right. It wasn't like the most graphically intense game I've ever seen, but it was really pretty, and the world was built really well, and it made me like hesitate, because I like to say, like, CD Projekt, obviously they made my favorite game, but now they can be one of my favorite developers. But the thing that sucks about saying that is how dirty they were at the launch of Cyberpunk, and how much they overpromised, and how much, like, they hid those reviews for console. It just seems dirty. So it's kind of sucks to say, like, they're one of my favorite developers, but the developers make good content. It just was not cooked ready. It was like not ready. So in that year that it came out, 2020, it's definitely a damn good game on PC at the max specs, or whatever the max PC stuff to have. And I get to see it now because it's patched out on PS5 into a state where it's pretty damn good. And so with the DLC that's coming out soon, It's like, that's extremely exciting for a game that didn't launch in 2022. I'm like really excited for that. And I got to play that game, and that's like how I'll remember it. It's like, man, I'm very grateful that I got to play this CD Projekt game in a good state, and it's not like ruined for me because I didn't play it at launch. Just wasn't even in the mood for it at launch. Actually, like, all I cared about as it kept going up and everybody was hyping it, I was like, I just want another Witcher, dude. I don't care about Cyberpunk. Like, I just don't. I'd never even like dipped my toes in the genre before, so it was really cool to like understand like the dystopian technological body modification kind of like stuff that is Cyberpunk that I'd never knew, because I haven't watched any media or read any media or consumed anything of Cyberpunk before. And not I'm talking about the genre of Cyberpunk, not just the 2077 game. And so that was really, really cool to see. And I definitely think I like that genre, and I need to watch more things like Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner, like more stuff in Cyberpunk. So that's what, like, those were my highlights this year of like backlog games that I got to jump into because I had the time. And so I really, really am happy that I had the downtime. I'm actually like kind of nervous about 2023. We talked about delays and more stuff like that, but I think that 2023 will be a lot more new games for me. I think I'm going to be stacked with games to play in 2023, and I won't have much time. Maybe I'll sneak in a couple backlog games, but I think that'll be majority like games that came out in 2023 next year, instead of this other way around where like majority of the games that I played are backlog this year. But that's all I really have to say about that topic on the table.
Nice. Yeah, I'm naturally pessimistic about further delays, but I think 2023 should be better than 2022, hopefully.
Oh, I do too.
I do too. Shall I go into my achievement of the week?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my achievement of the week this week is Out with the Boys, which is from Rainbow Six Extraction. So it's to complete all objectives in an incursion with only male operators. So this was one of the achievements that like popped in like the massive bunch of achievements that was just like totally out of nowhere. Like, I wasn't going for it. I just picked a character and then played it. And it was like, dudes rock, like shout out to the boys. So it's like, yeah, the boys. So, I mean, yeah, I figured, surprised me. It's kind of a dumb achievement. Like, it feels like they were just like running out of ideas of what else to do with achievements. I think there's a similar achievement to just playing with like all women as well. So yeah, I approve of it. Simple, quick to the point. Great.
That's a good achievement. I for my trophy of the week, I chose Sifu as the game because I did thoroughly enjoy it so much that I was like, I know that I used 2 other achievements or trophies from this game to last week. So I know this is my 3rd one and it's back to back, but damn, the game was so good and the achievement list was really, really fun. And so I wanted to highlight another one, and the trophy is called Path of the Prospect. And this one is for just unlocking a move called the Mighty, I think it said Calbut move. And it's so fucking funny when you use this move because it doesn't do any damage to the enemy. It's kind of like it uses kind of stamina to use the move, but you like basically hit them and then you smack them on the back of the head and you're like, hey, quit fucking around, kind of like a master would do. It's like, you're not paying attention, so you can like just it's almost a taunt, but it's a special move and it doesn't do any damage, and then you immediately get like 5 times the amount of points. So if you're able to like go through battle in the game, it'll be like ×1, ×2, ×3, and then you get all the way up to ×5, and your points will start stacking because as you go through more enemies and stuff, you're not taking hits and you're getting kills, and like you're just building up a score in the game on that level. Plus you're not getting hit, which is super good for your health and your age at the end. It has a score that it keeps track of, and you're like, maybe I want to get a better score. But when you use that move, you could go from 0 to 5, like ×5 immediately, because it is a taunt. But it's so fucking funny, dude, just to watch the character just smack an NPC on the back of the head, being like, quit fucking around. It's so awesome. But yeah, that's a great trophy. Whenever I saw that, I was like, oh, I like that one. I like that one a lot. I kind of wish they would have had it for using it instead of just unlocking it, but
Yeah, I
Still
think
good.
like taunt moves are always a cool like risk reward mechanic when
Yeah,
they
and
have gameplay implications. That's really cool.
it's secret too. It's not like when you start the game, it's not there until you unlock it. So what I mean by that is like there's a bunch of skills on a page, and it's like grayed out, and you can like read what they are, and you're like, I don't have the amount of currency or the amount of skill points to level that up. So it's just grayed out, and this one doesn't even show up, like not until you've unlocked it later. And so that's really really cool. So it's hidden. But that's it. Do you have any other final thoughts, AJ?
Yeah, play Plague Tale if you have any time in the next like couple of days or whatever. Just to the audience, just play it. It's worth playing, or pick it up on sale. It's good. I think it because it's like a new IP from Asobo. You know, it didn't get like massive hype either. You know, it launched pretty soft in that sense. But you know, on Game Pass, it goes on sale. It's well worth the time, well worth the money. That's my big recommendation for the sequel next month.
Ditto. I echo that. That game is what, like I said, it's good. It's a good game, and I think it should be tried, and then be anticipate the next one because it's a hype
Yeah,
moment.
it's a fun.
Like
You can do it in one sitting as well, or two
yeah,
sittings. You know, it's just a quick game as well, which is nice. Respects your time.
it does. But everyone, thanks for listening. Happy hunting. Peace out.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to Complete Edition. If you like the content, consider supporting us on patreon.com/completion club. If you have any questions or would like to reach us, email completionclub@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Complete Edition.